So do you have an agent?
I do have an agent now, and I can tell you, I'll try to briefly tell my agent saga, which was, got my first book published because it won a contest. The very best way to have your first book published is by winning a contest. It gets, automatically you get a little attention for the book, and you get to say you're a contest winner. So I got that, that happened, the AWP award, and then luckily, as that book came out, I had already been working really hard on the novel Q Road. So that book came out, Women and Other Animals, and it got good reviews. And I had a novel ready. So I was able to get a good agent because I had that in place. I had already good reviews, a published book, good reviews, and a novel ready. If any of those things hadn't been in place, I may not have been able to get an agent, but because they were all in place,
They could recognize you were serious and things were going. Yeah,
things were going, and somebody else. You know, we think agents are these great purveyors of taste, but they kind of wait for somebody else to say you're great. And then they're like, oh, okay, now I can look at you. And part of that is just because there's so many writers out there. They need a way of weeding through writers. But, okay, so I get an agent. She gets my book published, Q Road, and then she didn't like anything else I ever sent her. And years ticked by, and I sent her the stories from American Salvage, and she said, ho hum, you know, nobody wants your stories, go ahead and go find your own publisher, and then maybe you should look for a new agent.
Yep.
Actually, she did, she said that.
She said that to you?
Well, she said that to me when so I got American Salvage published, and then I had this other novel, Once Upon a River, and she said, why don't you find another agent? So. When I became a National Book Award finalist, I got notes from 50 agents. So that was nice. So it's a funny thing, but it also teaches me the fact that I was up and then went down, and there was no guarantee anything was ever going to happen again. I mean, I worked hard on those stories, but...
So that went in without an agent?
Yeah,
you
that, yes.
Manuscript?
Right, I sent the manuscript to Wayne State. So, so I had unagented book, then agented book, and then unagented, and then for the new book, I'm agented. But it reminds me that, you know, this is a fickle business. There's no guarantee. I am not going to get a big, whatever happens, I'm not going to get a big head about this, because you know, even really strong writers, things can go badly for them, and you can be up and you can be down, and it has to be the writing that matters. It is so nice to get positive feedback and reinforcement, and it means, I mean, it's wonderful to get it from New York, but maybe it means even more to me, like having it in this bookstore. You know what I mean? Like, that's the really fabulous thing. I guess the stuff from New York means you get more money, I guess.
Well, it's a form of flattery.
Money is a form of flattery, but I mean, it's funny because I'm still just as scared about creating a new story as I ever was. I'm still as insecure about a new book. When I turned in Once Upon a River, I was terrified because two of my last readers, I shouldn't have saved them for the end, were the two people who liked the book the least. And one of them was my mom, who wishes I'd write mysteries. She's like, why didn't they catch the guy, you know? And another one is a cousin of mine who really likes more experimental, abstract kind of stuff, real wacky writing. And so she just wasn't that crazy about it. And I should have been more careful about when I had them, because I ended up at the very end terrified that the book wasn't good. And it's weird because all the voices that were telling me it was good, and then there were just two voices saying it wasn't good, and of course I'm obsessed with those voices, so I developed an eye twitch. It's finally gone.
Well, now, aside from, let's say people do not belong to a writer's group or a college program or whatever, but they need some feedback, so who would they give their work to?
They would find a writer's group and find a couple like-minded, let's say there was some hermit, some kind of cranky hermit who just wanted to write alone in his room.
Like Randy Glumm, yeah.
Who wanted to, maybe there could be a reaching out among a few sort of hermit types, could sort of reach out to each other, maybe through the email, you know, maybe they could send packages in the mail with no return address, but, you know. Yeah, I think whatever you're doing, you need some like-minded people.
You have to trust somebody.
You have to trust somebody because if there were a shortage of writers, then there would be these hungry editors out there, eager for any work they could get hold of, desperate to edit that work into a beautiful form that they could then publish. But because there's so many of us, they can kind of sit back and wait for the work that's already pretty good to come in. And so we have to do all that. We have to do all those early stages ourselves, especially early in our careers. We have to do that by ourselves and with our friends. So we have to, and because we need so much help, we have to have, and none of us have enough money to buy that help. Because you can buy that help. You can send your work to an editor if you can afford it. I have a friend who's one of the best editors ever. She edited American Salvage for Wayne State. She worked for them for a while. And she will edit your work for $30 an hour. And she will do a fabulous job, but it's hard to part with your money when you don't have a lot, and most writers don't. So that's how we get into a swapping. It turns out we need to swap work in order to get it done.
And I did interrupt you, and I didn't mean to cut one of your answers short. Was what would you recommend to upcoming writers or beginners as things to supplement their reading? How-to books or whatever, and you had one more on your tongue, and I think I cut it.
Oh, I don't know. I know. I'm wishing I could remember the name. Does Madison Smart Bell have one? Have a how-to book? One of my students just wrote to me about one she just loved, and I wish I could remember the title of it. Oh, one that's good for maybe a little bit more advanced issues, so not so much nuts and bolts, but thinking about the bigger issues of a story, is Charles Baxter's Burning Down the House. Oh. That's from Grey Wolf. It's from one of these medium-sized presses, and it's a really good one because it's a really good book because it has, like, for example, one of the chapters is called Against Epiphanies, and it talks about that aha moment. And it just talks about that. It talks about how different authors handle how much of an aha moment do you allow. And one of my favorite chapters is called something about melodrama. Maybe the case for melodrama. Melodrama is something that we usually say, oh, we don't want melodrama in our works. And he kind of makes the case that actually what melodrama does is it touches the human heart. So you need a little of it, but you have to be careful. You don't want to be called sentimental. But he takes on some of these bigger issues that writers want to talk about. I think the book is actually gave a series of lectures, and I think he wrote up his lectures as chapters.
And that's Charles Baxter?
Charles Baxter, yep, who was a Michigan writer for a while, and I think he's in Minnesota now.
Yep.
And but yeah, that's a really nice book. And the good thing is it'll be in print forever because it's from Grey Wolf Press, and they keep their books in print. So.
One of the small presses that are actually holding their own.
Yeah, that's I would call them a medium-sized press. So they're Grey Wolf and Algonquin and maybe Coffee Table Press. There's just a small little ledge of these medium-sized presses that are holding on. There's the big ones, and then there's the many small presses. And Michigan even has a bunch of. I found George Dill is going to have a book from Mayflower. Is that right? Mayapple. What am I saying? Mayflower. That's something entirely different. And I don't know what our other small presses are. We have a couple of other good small presses, but the Dance. How are we going to pronounce that? I know.
It's two people's last names. So.
Is that how they came up with it? Okay.
3 letters of the last name.
Yeah.
You want to dive into Flannery OConnor now?
Oh yeah, well, I've been pondering this Flannery OConnor question because I do feel a kinship with her, and other people have said, your work reminds me of Flannery OConnor. But she was a very strong Catholic. She was a Catholic with very strong beliefs, and she felt that whatever happened on this earth, God was going to sort it out in heaven. And I don't have that confidence. I think what happens on this earth maybe matters most. And so I think I have a slightly different relationship to my characters than she did. And I think she could be a little more brutal with her characters than I allow myself. People do think I'm brutal, but I think I hold back a little. I worry very much about the fate of my characters and of real people who are like my characters, and I want to handle them. I handle them gently, and I think that Flannery O'Connor did not feel that was her job to handle them gently.
That's a little bit south too. The southern writers can be pretty tough,
Maybe preaching.
male and female.
Yeah.
Bonnie and Randy, this probably this little known Lansing fact, but you may know it, that Flannery O'Connor, 3 blocks from here, in 1956, gave her first time she ever spoke about the grotesque.
She
in writing.
presented.
Really?
The women's club meeting here in Lansing.
Very interesting.
And she wrote a lot of letters about being here in Lansing, which weren't terribly flattering. Frankly, about Lansing.
I'm not sure she thought too much of anything.
And no, I'm not a fan. I like this stuff, and I'm not a fan of Flannery O'Connor. So to me, I didn't feel that. And incidentally, for your editor, I mean, it's very hard. I'm sure we're all aware of this, to read a book today because of the machine, right? To read a book without error. Now I've edited and I've
But I think
taught
that
and let me tell you that on that level alone, masterpiece.
do you know, that's
Beautiful.
That's my friend Heidi Bell. was
Well,
my
tell
editor
her
on
she
that.
has done an extraordinary
No, I feel
job
very.
in this year.
I love it when people notice that the book does not have errors in it,
Oh,
and I can't claim credit. All I can claim credit for is that I care desperately that it doesn't have errors in it. But
it's very disruptive
I think
to a
we
reader.
lose, as readers, we lose respect for a book when we see errors. It's no, I mean, I wish it weren't true, because it's very expensive to make error-free books.
Just
Oh,
a
yeah.
little while ago before we started here, Jennifer and I, or Amy and I, were discussing the fact that, well, I stated when I was in junior high with an editing job, never. And by the time I was out of
That's
junior
right.
high and into high school, you were finding 2 and 3 errors.
Do you think maybe you were a better
chapter.
proofreader?
Well, maybe so. I don't know, but it's irritating. You don't want to. I mean, you finish the book if it's good, but it's still irritating and it's distracting.
Absolutely. Drives me
And I was pleased. I
nuts.
didn't find any.
Yeah,
No, it's
nobody has
beautifully
pointed
done.
one out. American Salvage, nobody's pointed out an error in there
I'm gonna
yet,
find
so, yeah, if you find one, let me know and we'll have them
I don't
fix it.
think I saw
Well, the
one.
good thing too is you
I'm
can
very
fix them in subsequent printings. They will fix mistakes, but,
Yeah.
no, I really appreciate you saying that, and it's important to me too, but I have to remain humble, because even with the best proofreading, those
no.
errors can pop up.
Yeah,
And
great.
but I give a lot of the credit to Heidi Bell,
Should-
who's my
should happen.
friend and my editor at really being an amazing reader. And you know, those editing skills, we all admire great writing skills, but the unsung heroes are these fabulous editors. You know, I have a fabulous editor at Norton now, Jill Bylowski, and I can't believe how much. I mean, the book was not even the book before she edited. I mean, before she helped me get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she did so much. I mean, her vision was so, and yet I'm going to get all the credit for it, you know. And the
Well,
good thing is she's a part owner of the company, so she maybe somehow
there
she'll
you
get
go.
Well,
benefit.
she's been paid.
Yes, and you guys know that Norton is an employee-owned company. Isn't that great? It's not owned by
That's
Viacom or one of the
that's
other big.
fantastic.
Yeah, so they can take chances, I think, that other companies can't, other publishers can't. But yeah, editors are really the unsung heroes, and even, you know, even some agents, my agent was so helpful in his thoughts on the book. So I just keep coming back to this feeling that I can't do it alone. And
Well, Max Perkins,
Yeah, well,
that was a wonderful biography about a great editor. I didn't want to bring that up, but I do have one question, if everybody wants to take a break after that or what, was that when you are editing your own work, proofing your own work, do you, I guess it's a stupid question, but hey, how much time do you spend, maybe each story is different, I'm sure, than the previous one, but a lot of time on the craft part of it and a lot of time on the intuitive and philosophical side of it, or does it just flow kind of easily for you and you distinguish perhaps later the difference between the
yeah, I don't separate it into those things. As I'm writing, I'm editing. As I'm editing, I'm proofreading, and then I'm making changes. What I'm always thinking about is communicating with the audience. I'm always just thinking about reaching the audience. I'm thinking about respecting the audience. I'm thinking about how this feels,
Does
like
it
how
come
the
across,
thing,
or-
yeah, how this thing, like I'm working on this ghost story, and I'm, you know, with a ghost story is different because you're trying to create this, you know, you're trying to create mystery and so this has been a new way for me to think about the reader, like, you know, as I'm reading, I think, is the reader on edge here? Is the reader with me here? Is the reader a little bit afraid or uneasy here? And how can I just figure out where I want these different things to happen? So I'm continually thinking about what will make the story more fun, what will make the story have a little more meaning. The main thing about writing is we're trying to create more meaning. You know, we're inventing fictional characters and trying to make them meaningful to strangers. How crazy is that? And so how do you make meaning ever? You make meaning by getting in touch with what is human and what matters to people every day. Comfort, concern, you know what, and so for me, for writing, it's just about reaching that reader, you know, that whether, I imagine my reader is a smart, busy person, you know, so a smart person who's a little intolerant of nonsense. So I know that I have to get the nonsense out. I can't fuss too much. And then I know that the reader's busy. So I need to make sure that I don't take more time from the reader than the story's worth. So I have to be more concise. And, you know, the reader's smart, so the reader is going to expect a smart I can't slip anything by the reader. So I just keep trying to affect the reader and make it matter